A millionaire took his mistress home right after his wife's funeral. The next day, when the lawyer read the will, he collapsed at what she had done with the fortune. The funeral home in Fairfield, Connecticut, was packed with mourners paying their last respects to Hannah Sterling, as rain pattered against the stained glass windows. Soft sobs echoed through the chapel. Hannah's coffin was surrounded by white roses, her favorite flowers, which she had grown in the garden behind the Sterling mansion. But upstairs in the funeral home's private room, David Sterling, the 70-year-old real estate mogul, wasn't grieving. Instead, he was texting on his phone, a slight smile playing on his lips. Betty Wilson, the Sterling's housekeeper of 40 years, watched in disbelief as he checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. "Mr. Sterling," Betty whispered, her voice trembling. "People are waiting to start the service." David barely looked up. 5 more minutes. "We're waiting for someone." That someone turned out to be Olivia Bennett, a striking 45-year-old marketing executive. She walked into the funeral wearing a tight black dress and, to everyone's shock, Hannah's signature pearl necklace, the one she had worn every day for the past 45 years. The pearls weren't just jewelry, they were a symbol of Hannah and David's love story, given to her the day they bought their first real estate office. Now, they gleamed around another woman's neck, just days after Hannah's death. "Isn't the service beautiful?" Olivia whispered to David, loud enough for nearby mourners to hear. "Though the flowers are a bit old-fashioned. We should hire a modern decorator for the mansion." Betty's hands clenched into fists as she watched David nod in agreement. Her mind flashed back to just last week when Hannah was still alive, tending to those same white roses despite her weakness from chemotherapy. The whispers started immediately. "Is that her pearl necklace? He brought his mistress to the funeral. How dare they?" But the real shock came after the service when, while mourners were still wiping their tears, David announced that he was hosting an intimate gathering at the Sterling mansion. When the first guests arrived, they found Olivia already there, in Hannah's closet. "These old dresses need to go," Olivia declared, throwing Hannah's carefully preserved clothes into boxes. "This mansion needs a younger woman's touch." Betty stood frozen in the doorway, watching as Olivia pulled out Hannah's photo albums. "We don't need these anymore," Olivia said, dropping them into a trash bag. "The past is the past." That's when Betty saw it. Hannah's prized silver-framed wedding photo had been cracked and discarded among the trash. As she rescued it, a sealed envelope fell from behind the frame. On it, in Hannah's elegant handwriting, were the words, "To be opened upon my death. To my true love." Betty quickly hid the letter in her apron pocket, her hands trembling. She watched as Olivia not only paraded around in Hannah's pearls, but also slipped Hannah's wedding ring onto her finger, a ring that shouldn't have been available, as Hannah had been buried with it. "David, darling," Olivia called out. "I found Hannah's wedding ring in her jewelry box. You must have switched it before the burial. How thoughtful of you to save it for me." David, ever at his mistress's side, said, "Everything that was Hannah's is yours now, my dear. Tomorrow we'll meet with the lawyers to read the will, and then we can start our new life together." What David didn't know was that in Betty's pocket, Hannah's letter contained much more than just words. And tomorrow, at the reading of the will, David Sterling's world would crumble in ways he never imagined. As the day drew to a close, Betty watched Olivia measuring the master bedroom windows for new curtains. "These heavy drapes are so depressing," Olivia complained. "This whole place needs a complete makeover." Thunder cracked outside, and for a moment, Betty could have sworn she saw Hannah's reflection in the bedroom mirror, her face bearing that knowing smile she always had when she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Hannah might have been gone, but Betty knew one thing for certain: tomorrow would change everything. The seeds of revenge had been planted long ago, and they were about to bloom in ways that would shake the foundations of the Sterling Empire. Fairfield, Connecticut, 1975. Hannah Peterson walked into the tiny real estate office, carrying a brown envelope. She found David Sterling sitting at his desk, his head in his hands, eviction notices and past due bills scattered across the desk. I can't pay you this week's salary, David said, not looking up. The bank's closing on the office. It's over. Hannah sat down across from him. Actually, I have something that might help. She opened the envelope and pulled out a check. My grandmother left me an inheritance. It's not much, but it's enough to save the office and start fresh. David's eyes widened. Hannah, I can't take your money. It's not a gift, she said, smiling. It's an investment. I've watched you work, David. You're a brilliant salesman, but you need someone to handle the books. She smiled. Someone like me. David grabbed her hands. If you do this, I promise we'll be partners in everything. I'll never let you down. That promise lasted exactly 45 years, 2 months, and 3 days. In the months before her death, Hannah sat in her home office, staring at old photographs. She picked up one from their wedding day, David placing his grandmother's pearls around her neck. With these pearls, I promise to love you forever, he had said. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Sterling, Professor Thompson is here. Jennifer Thompson walked in, carrying a laptop. At 62, she commanded attention with her confident stride. Hannah quickly hid the photos. Thank you for meeting privately, she said. Did you bring the documents I asked for? Jennifer nodded, pulling out a stack of papers. Everything about digital entrepreneurship for seniors. Hannah looked at her, and then held up her hand. Jennifer, there's something you should know about David and me. Jennifer sat down. I know, Hannah. You were engaged to David in college. He left you for me. Hannah's jaw tightened. I found his old letters to you last month, the same day I found his emails to Sophia. Jennifer's eyes widened. You knew? Hannah's voice remained steady. That's why I chose you for this project. You understand what he is capable of. Jennifer sat down, looking troubled. All these years, I thought you were the reason he left me. But now… Hannah opened her laptop, revealing spreadsheets of property transactions and offshore accounts. This time, Hannah said, he is going to learn that karma takes compound interest. She clicked through documents showing millions in questionable transactions. David thinks he built this empire, but I'm the one who kept the books. Every shortcut, every dirty deal, every bit of creative accounting, I documented it all. Jennifer leaned forward. What are you planning? A foundation. Not just any foundation, Hannah said, her voice cold. A revolution. We're going to teach senior women to build online businesses. But first, Hannah said, pulling out more documents, I need to move some assets before David notices. Jennifer warned her, he'll fight the will. Hannah smiled, her eyes glinting. Let him try. I've spent 45 years learning how David thinks. I know exactly what he'll do. She picked up a photo of David and Olivia at a hotel. Just like I knew about them long before he thought I did. Jennifer smiled. The famous Hannah Sterling. Always 3 steps ahead. Why show me all this? Hannah's eyes filled with tears. Because I need someone who understands both business and betrayal. The foundation needs to succeed. These women need to succeed. Jennifer took Hannah's hand. We won't let you down. As Jennifer left, Hannah opened her safe and removed a USB drive. On it was every transaction, every lie, every betrayal David had committed over 4 decades. Next to it lay a stack of property deeds, all recently transferred to Hannah's private trust. David, she whispered, touching her pearls, you taught me everything about real estate, but you forgot the first rule. She looked at the empire she had quietly taken control of. Location isn't everything. Timing is. Tomorrow, David would bring Olivia home after the funeral, but Hannah had already ensured that home had a very different meaning than he thought. Mrs. Sterling, you might want to sit down for this. Dr. Roberts held the test results in his hands. The hospital room felt smaller than usual. Hannah sat straight in her chair. How long? She asked. 6 months, maybe 8, with aggressive treatment, Dr. Roberts said. Hannah nodded. And without treatment? 3 months at most. She opened her calendar app. That's all I need. On her way home, Hannah stopped at the office to pick up some files. The building was empty, everyone had left for the day. As she sat at her computer to check one last email, a notification popped up. David had forgotten to log out of his account again. The first email she saw was from Sophia. Can't wait until she has gone. I've already picked out new furniture for our bedroom. Hannah clicked through more messages. There were photos of David and Olivier in Hawaii during the week he declaimed to be at a real estate convention. Hotel receipts. Plans for their future together. Our time is coming, David had written. The old lady won't last much longer. Hannah's hands didn't shake as she forwarded everything to her private email. Then she noticed a video attachment. She pressed play. David's face filled the screen. He was in their bedroom. Their bedroom. With Sophia. Once Hannah's gone, everything in this house is yours, he promised, kissing Sophia. I never loved her like I love you. A knock at the door made Hannah quickly close the laptop. David's face filled the screen. He was in their bedroom. Their bedroom. With Sophia. Once Hannah's gone, everything in this house is yours, he promised, kissing Sophia. I never loved her like I love you. A knock at the door made Hannah quickly close the laptop. Grace Wilson, a nurse in her 60s, stood in the doorway. Mrs. Sterling, your husband's been looking for you. He's worried about your doctor's appointment. Hannah smiled. Of course he is. She gathered her things and then paused. Grace, could you help me with something? Over the next week, Hannah met with Grace regularly, supposedly for preliminary treatment consultations. But their real conversations had nothing to do with cancer. You're sure about this? Grace asked, looking at the old photo Hannah had handed her. Positive, Hannah said. David doesn't he know, does he? About the baby? Grace's face paled. How did you? I found the letters, Grace. From 1982. David got you pregnant during our first year of marriage, then paid you to disappear. Grace sank into a chair. I never cashed his check. I raised Jack Carter on my own. The same Jack Carter who donated his kidney to David 15 years ago, Hannah said. Hannah reached for Grace's hand. Does David know his kidney came from his own son? No. Grace wiped a tear. Jack Carter doesn't he know either. He thinks he donated to a stranger. Hannah nodded. I need your help, Grace. Not just as a nurse, but as someone else David betrayed. Grace's eyes widened. It's brilliant, but why tell me all this? Because in 6 months David will need someone to explain exactly why he lost everything, Hannah said. I'm giving you this sealed envelope, and you'll be there to tell him. That evening, Hannah attended her first entrepreneurship class. Jennifer was teaching senior women how to start online businesses. As Hannah watched these women learn about websites and social media, her plan crystallized. At home, David was waiting. Where were you? I was worried sick. At therapy, Hannah lied. Doctor's orders. David hugged her. Whatever you need, darling, I'm here for you. Hannah hugged him back, feeling the weight of the USB drive in her pocket. I know you are, dear. Right until the end. That night, Hannah wrote in her diary. David thinks he's waiting for me to die. But I'm not his victim. I'm his karma. And karma comes with compound interest. She looked at the photo of Grace's son, David's unknown kidney donor, and smiled. Some secrets were worth dying with. Others were worth saving for exactly the right moment. Tomorrow, I'll start selling properties, she thought. Next week, I'll transfer funds. And in 6 months, I'll teach David that his greatest mistake wasn't he betraying me. It was underestimating me. The chemotherapy ward at Fairfield Memorial buzzed with quiet conversation. Hannah sat in her usual chair, watching as 2 other women worked on craft projects during their treatments. Eleanor Martinez, 70, was showing everyone pictures of her grandchildren while sharing homemade cookies. Patricia Wong, 66, knitted caps for other cancer patients, her needles clicking softly. You must try these cookies, Eleanor insisted, handing Hannah a plate. My secret recipe has been in the family for generations. They're amazing, Hannah said, genuinely impressed. You could sell these. Eleanor sighed. My grandson keeps saying I should start a business, but at my age, who do you buy from, an old lady? Patricia looked up from her knitting. Same reason I don't sell my caps. No one takes us seriously anymore. Hannah was about to respond when commotion erupted in the hallway. I don't care who you are, you can't just change patient appointments, a woman's voice said. It was Grace, confronting a young woman. Do you know who my mother is? Who my future father is? The girl waved a phone. David Sterling is about to marry my mom, so you better get used to taking orders from me. Hannah sat up straighter. This must be Ashley, Sophia's daughter. Later that afternoon, Hannah returned home to find Ashley in her study, rifling through her desk. Can I help you? Hannah asked. Ashley jumped. Mom said I could look around. This will be her office soon anyway. Hannah noticed her photo albums scattered on the floor. Those were private, she said. Ashley picked up a photo. Who is this man with Dad? I mean David. Hannah took the photo. It showed David with James Bennett, Sophia's father, from 20 years ago. Just an old business partner, Hannah said. Ashley looked confused. Mom never talks about my grandfather. She says he abandoned her. Is that what she told you? Hannah sat down. Your grandfather didn't abandon anyone. David ruined him. Ashley froze. What? James Bennett was David's partner. They built housing developments together. But when James discovered David was cutting corners on safety, he threatened to report him. Hannah opened her desk drawer. Instead, David framed him for fraud. James lost everything. You're lying, Ashley said, but her voice wavered. Am I? Hannah said. Ask your mother why she really wants to marry David. Ask her about Project Sunrise from 2003. Before Ashley could respond, Olivia burst into the study. Ashley! What are you doing? Talking to her? Mom, who is Grandpa James? Ashley asked. Sophia's face paled. That's none of your business. Come on, we're leaving. Actually, Hannah said, I think it is her business. Just like the real reason you're marrying David. Olivia grabbed Ashley's arm. We're done here. After they left, Hannah's phone rang. It was Catherine Lewis, her old college roommate. Hannah, I found those recordings you asked about. The ones from David's office. You still have them? All of them, Catherine replied. Including the conversation where he planned James Bennett's downfall. Catherine paused, then added, There's more. I found something about Sophia. She's been recording David, too? Hannah smiled. Of course she has. She's her father's daughter. She's her father's daughter. Hannah smiled. Of course she has. These recordings could ruin everyone, Catherine said, her voice low. That's the point, Hannah replied. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something better. That evening, Hannah met Eleanor and Patricia at a coffee shop. A business course? Eleanor asked skeptically. At our age? Why not? Hannah showed them Jennifer's course outline. We have experience, skills, stories to tell. Why shouldn't we profit from them? Patricia touched one of her knitted caps. You really think people would buy these? I know they would, Hannah said, pulling out her laptop. Let me show you something. As she explained Jennifer's digital entrepreneurship program, Hannah watched their eyes light up. These women had spent decades being underestimated, just like her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Ashley was asking about her grandfather at the hospital today. She seemed shaken. Hannah replied, The truth has a way of shaking things up. Another message popped up from Betty, Mrs. Sterling. Ashley's been crying in her car outside the mansion for an hour. Should I check on her? Hannah typed, let her process. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people discover the truth on their own. Hannah looked at Eleanor and Patricia now, excitedly discussing business ideas. Soon, they would be part of something bigger than revenge. They would be part of her legacy. A legacy built not on destroying David, but on empowering the very people he had underestimated, starting with his future stepdaughter. Jennifer's classroom at the community college was filled with women over 60, all focused on their laptop screens. Hannah sat in the back, watching Eleanor learn to set up her cookie business website. Remember, ladies, Jennifer said, your age is your advantage. People trust experience. Hannah's phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer, 3 more properties transferred successfully. David, hasn't he noticed? Mrs. Sterling's secretary of 30 years, Linda, appeared at the classroom door. Mr. Sterling is looking for you. He is furious about the Westbrook Plaza sale. Hannah checked her watch. Right on schedule. Back at Sterling Real Estate, David was pacing his office. Who authorized the sale of Westbrook Plaza? That property was worth millions. You did, dear, Hannah said, handing him a document. See your signature? David stared at the paper. I never signed this. You signed it last month. Remember? During that dinner when Olivia wore that red dress you bought her? David's face paled. How did you know about the dress? The same way I know about the house you bought her in Miami. Hannah smiled. I know everything, David. Before he could respond, his assistant rushed in. Sir, Thompson Construction is pulling out of all projects. They say they received proof of unsafe building materials. What? That's impossible, David shouted. Oh, and the Jensen account they're leaving too. The assistant handed him a stack of resignation letters. Also, half the sales team quit this morning. David collapsed in his chair. This can't be happening. It's happening, Hannah said quietly. Just like you planned James Bennett's downfall to happen. You don't know anything about Bennett. David spat. Hannah played a recording on her phone. David's voice from 20 years ago planning to frame James Bennett. Where did you get that? David demanded. The same place I got everything else. You really should change your email password, dear. At that moment, Olivia burst in. David, we have a problem. Ashley's asking questions about my father. Not now, Sophia, David snapped. Yes, now, Olivia said urgently. She found old newspapers about Dad's trial. She knows what you did to him. Hannah watched them argue, then slipped out. In the hallway, she met Jennifer. How many women signed up? Hannah asked. 30 so far, Jennifer replied. Eleanor's cookies already have pre-orders. Patricia's caps are trending on social media. Perfect. And the other thing? Hannah asked. Jennifer pulled out old letters from her bag. Found them in my attic. Every promise David made before he left me for you. We'll need those later, Hannah said. For when he tries to challenge the will. That afternoon, Hannah visited her lawyer. Is everything ready? She asked. Properties transferred, documents filed, evidence secured? The lawyer looked concerned. Mrs. Sterling, this goes beyond revenge. You're dismantling his entire empire. Not dismantling, Hannah corrected him. Transforming. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. How many properties did we donate to the Women's Business Initiative? 5 office buildings and 3 retail spaces, Hannah said. The lawyer paused. David will explode when he finds out. Hannah smiled. He'll do more than explode. He'll try to stop it. Later at the hospital, Grace updated Hannah on another part of the plan. Jack Carter asked about his father again, Grace said. He is starting to suspect. Does he know he saved David's life? Hannah asked. No, Grace replied. But he is a doctor now. He has access to transplant records. Hannah nodded. Perfect timing. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Ashley. Is it true? Did David really destroy my grandfather? Hannah replied, Ask your mother about Project Sunrise. Ask her why she really came back to Fairfield. Same place I got everything else. You really should change your email password, dear. At that moment, Olivia burst in. David, we have a problem. Ashley's asking questions about my father. Not now, Sophia. Yes, now. She found old newspapers about Dad's trial. She knows what you did to him. Hannah watched them argue, then slipped out. In the hallway, she met Jennifer. How many women signed up? Hannah asked. 30 so far. Eleanor's cookies already have pre-orders. Patricia's caps are trending on social media. Perfect. And the other thing? Jennifer pulled out old letters. Found them in my attic. Every promise David made before he left me for you. We'll need those later, Hannah said. For when he tries to challenge the will. That afternoon, Hannah visited her lawyer. Is everything ready? Properties transferred, documents filed, evidence secured? The lawyer looked concerned. Hannah, this goes beyond revenge. You're dismantling his entire empire. Not dismantling. Transforming, Hannah corrected him. How many properties did we donate to the Women's Business Initiative? 5 office buildings and 3 retail spaces. David will explode when he finds out. He'll do more than explode. He'll try to stop it. Hannah handed him a USB drive. That's why we have this. Later at the hospital, Grace updated Hannah on another part of the plan. Jack Carter asked about his father again. Grace said. He's starting to suspect. Does he know he saved David's life? No, but he's a doctor now. He has access to transplant records. Hannah nodded. Perfect timing. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Ashley. Is it true? Did David really destroy my grandfather? Hannah replied, Ask your mother about Project Sunrise. Ask her why she really came back to Fairfield. That evening, Hannah ended one final class at Jennifer's program. The women were sharing their business plans. Eleanor had orders from 3 restaurants. Patricia's caps were featured in a local fashion blog. Even Betty was starting a home organizing service. You've given us our power back, Eleanor said. No, Hannah replied. I just showed you where it was all along. On her way home, Hannah got a final message from her lawyer. All transfers complete. No way to trace them. David's name isn't on anything anymore. Hannah touched her pearls, the ones Olivia would soon wear, and smiled. Everything was in place. Tomorrow, I would start my final round of treatment. In 3 months, I would be gone. But my revenge, that would live forever. And David, he was about to learn that the empire he built on lies would crumble on truth, starting with his own son's sacrifice. The law office of Davidson and Partners fell silent as Hannah's will was about to be read. David sat confidently, holding Sophia's hand. Betty stood in the corner, still wearing her housekeeper's uniform. Grace positioned herself by the door, clipboard in hand. Before we begin, Mr. Davidson said, Mrs. Sterling left specific instructions for this video to be played first. David frowned. The screen lit up with Hannah's face. She was wearing her pearls, the same ones now around Sophia's neck. Yes, Grace said. He grew up to be a doctor. He saved your life. And you never knew. Olivia stood up. You had a son? Another secret? She ripped the pearls from her neck. What else don't I know? Ask him about Project Sunrise, Hannah's voice suggested. Ask him what really happened to your father. Ashley burst into the room. I know what happened! I found the proof in Hannah's study! Ashley cried. Everything David did to destroy Grandpa. Ashley, wait! Olivia called after her daughter, who ran out crying. Mr. Davidson cleared his throat. There's more. Mrs. Sterling left specific instructions about inheritance timing. Any future spouse of Mr. Sterling must wait 15 years before accessing any assets. Olivia grabbed her purse. 15 years? I'm not waiting 15 years. She headed for the door. This isn't what we planned. David, call me when you figure this out. Sophia, please. David begged. One last thing, Hannah's recording said. Betty, could you give my pearls to Grace? She'll need them for her new position as foundation director. David watched helplessly as Grace put on Hannah's pearls. Oh, and David, Hannah's final words hung in the air. Remember when you said you never loved me like you loved Sophia? You were right. I loved you enough to build an empire. You loved me so little, you couldn't even wait until my funeral to replace me. The video ended. David sat alone, surrounded by the ruins of his empire. The Foundation's first classes start next week, Grace announced. Don't be late, David. Your students will be waiting. As everyone left, Betty placed an envelope on the table. Mrs. Sterling wanted you to have this last message privately. David opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single photo of him and Hannah on their first day in business, young and in love. On the back, Hannah had written, "The biggest mistake in real estate isn't location, David. It's thinking you own something that was never really yours." David looked up to find himself alone in the conference room, surrounded by papers detailing everything he had lost, everything he had thrown away for nothing. 3 weeks after the will reading, David sat alone in his office, staring at his phone. Olivia hadn't returned his calls. The email from Miami told him everything. She was dating Tom Reynolds, his biggest competitor. Your first class starts in 20 minutes, Grace announced from the doorway. She wore Hannah's pearls with quiet confidence. The foundation won't run itself, Grace said. I'm not teaching anyone anything. Then the evidence goes to the FBI. She placed a folder on his desk. Your choice. The classroom was full of women over 60. Eleanor sat in front, her cookie business website already open on her laptop. Patricia arranged her knitting samples on the desk. Welcome to Business Marketing 101, Jennifer said. David muttered, Speak up. A voice from the back called. Some of us lost our hearing laughing at men like you. The class laughed. David recognized the speaker, Dorothy Chen, a woman he de-evicted last year from one of his properties. His phone buzzed again. A message from his lawyer, FBI, asking questions about Project Sunrise. Someone sent them documents. Another message popped up from an unknown number. Dad, we need to talk. David's hands shook. He looked up to find Grace watching him. He figured it out on his own, she said. Check the transplant records at the hospital. Does he know everything about you paying me to disappear? Yes. Grace stepped closer. About how you threatened to destroy my nursing career if I ever told anyone. He knows that too. The classroom door opened. Jack Carter walked in, tall and confident, wearing a doctor's coat. David saw his own eyes looking back at him. Class dismissed, Grace announced. Except you, David. You need to hear this. Jack Carter sat down. So you're the man who abandoned my mother? Jack Carter said. I was young. I made mistakes, David muttered. Say it, Jack Carter demanded. Jack Carter pulled out hospital records. I'm also the man who saved your life. The match was almost perfect, wasn't it? Funny how genetics work. I can explain, David stammered. Explain what? Jack Carter said. How you made my mother disappear? Or how you never once asked about your son in 40 years? Grace stood by the door, watching. I have a trust fund, David offered. I can make this right. Jack Carter laughed. Hannah already did that. She left me controlling interest in the medical center you were building, the one you cut corners on. David's phone buzzed again. His lawyer had sent another message, SEC investigating offshore accounts. Hannah's evidence is overwhelming. David whispered. Yes, she did. Kidney? I thought I was helping a stranger. Turns out, I was saving the man who threw my mother away like trash. David's phone kept buzzing messages from his lawyers, the FBI, the SEC. His empire was crumbling. One more thing, Jack Carter said at the door. Ashley came to see me at the hospital. She needed someone to talk to about fathers who disappoint their children. We're having dinner tonight. Your daughter and your son. Isn't karma interesting? After they left, David opened his email. Olivia had sent a photo she and Tom Reynolds on his yacht in Miami. Thanks for the introduction, she wrote. Tom's properties are all legitimate, unlike yours. David reached for the bottom drawer where he used to keep his whiskey. Instead, he found a note in Hannah's handwriting. The worst prison isn't built with bars, David. It's built with consequences. His phone buzzed one final time. The message was simple. Mr. Sterling, this is the FBI. We need to talk about Project Sunrise. David looked out his office window at the foundation building next door. Through the window, he could see his former clients, now students, learning to build their own dreams. Dreams that would rise from the ashes of his lies, and he had no choice but to watch it happen, one lesson at a time. 2 months into teaching at the foundation, David noticed something changing. His students weren't just learning, they were succeeding. Eleanor's cookies now sold in 5 states. Patricia's knitting patterns had gone viral on social media. Even Betty's home organizing business had a waiting list. Today, we'll discuss online marketing, David announced to the class, no longer needing Grace's reminders to speak up. Dorothy Chin raised her hand. Like Hannah did with her secret website, David froze. What website? He asked. The one where she documented everything, Dorothy said. The class fell silent as Dorothy opened her laptop. She created it the day she found out about Sophia. She turned the screen around. There it was, a detailed timeline of David's betrayals, dating back 40 years. Hannah was my best friend in college, Dorothy revealed. Before you stole her from her fiancé. Remember him? James Bennett. David sat down hard. Hannah was engaged to Sophia's father. Now he gets it, Dorothy said with a smile. James loved Hannah, but you offered her a bigger dream. Then you destroyed James when he threatened to expose your schemes. That's why Olivia came back. David whispered. She asked James's revenge. No, David. She asked Hannah's justice, Dorothy said. After class, David found Grace waiting. Time for your meeting with Jack Carter, she said. The hospital cafeteria was quiet. Jack Carter sat with Ashley, both looking at old photographs. Dad used to take me here, Ashley said. Before he disappeared. Before Mom married that rich guy in Miami. My mom worked double shifts here, Jack Carter replied. Single mother, raising a doctor. David approached their table. Jack Carter. Ashley, they said together, either using Dad. I've been thinking, David said, about making things right. Little late for that, Jack Carter answered. Maybe not, David said. He pulled out papers. I'm signing over my remaining shares of the company to each of you. Ashley looked up. Why? Because Hannah was right about everything. David's voice cracked. I spent my life building an empire of lies. Maybe you two can build something better, David said. Like what? Like turning that medical center into something that actually helps people. No corner cutting. No lies. And what about you? Ashley demanded. I'll keep teaching these women. They remind me of Hannah when we started, determined, smart, better than me. Dorothy appeared at their table. Speaking of Hannah, there's something you should know, she said, handing David an old engagement photo. It's Hannah and James Bennett, young and smiling. The day you met Hannah, Dorothy said. She was buying her wedding dress. James had saved for years to start their real estate company. Then you offered her a partnership instead. I didn't know, David whispered. You never asked? Dorothy said. Just like you never asked about Jack Carter or why Olivia really came back. Or why Hannah kept every receipt, every document, every proof of your lies for 40 years. But why show me this now? David asked. Because tomorrow's lesson is about karma, and you're the case study, Dorothy said with a knowing smile. That evening, David worked late at the foundation. A new student approached his desk, an elderly woman he didn't recognize. Can I help you? Actually, I'm here to help you, she said, sitting down. I'm James Bennett's mother. Hannah asked me to give you this after she died. She handed him a letter. Inside, he found the original partnership agreement he'd signed with Hannah in 1975. On the back, Hannah had written, "The greatest revenge isn't destroying someone's dreams, David. It's showing them how it feels to watch others build their dreams on the ruins of yours." David looked up, but James's mother was gone. Through the window, he could see his students, women he once would have dismissed, building their own empires, not with lies like he had, but with the truth Hannah had taught them. For the first time, David Sterling felt truly poor. The foundation's success exceeded even Hannah's plans. 6 months after its opening, Eleanor's cookie company landed a contract with a national grocery chain. Patricia's knitting patterns earned her a segment on a morning show. The waiting list for classes grew to over 300 women. David watched it all from his small office, formerly the mansion's gardener's shed. Your 9 o'clock is here, Grace announced. Olivia walked in, noticeably less confident than before. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple business wear. David, we need to talk about what Tom Reynolds did. He threw you out after he lost everything in Miami. Olivia sat down. I deserve that, but I'm not here for money. Then why? David asked. Because Hannah knew this would happen, Olivia said. She pulled out an envelope. She left this with her lawyer, said to give it to me when I had nothing left. David leaned forward. What does it say? It's a job offer. Teaching marketing at the foundation. Sophia's hands trembled. She knew I'd fail in Miami. Knew I'd come back. And you want the job? I want to make things right with Ashley, Olivia said, looking at David. With my father's memory. Before David could respond, Ashley and Jack Carter appeared at the door. Mama, Ashley said. I hadn't spoken to Olivia in months. Hi, sweetie, Olivia said. I was just trying to manipulate someone else. No, Ashley said, crossing her arms. I'm here about Hannah's letter. Jack Carter stepped forward. The one about teaching marketing? Olivia looked surprised. You knew? Of course, Grace said from the doorway. Each letter from Hannah was exactly timed for when we needed it most. David opened his desk drawer, pulling out his own collection of Hannah's letters. Each had arrived at exactly the right moment, just when he was at his lowest. Did you read today's? Grace asked. David shook his head, opening the envelope marked, When Olivia returns. Hannah's words were clear. True power isn't in destroying people, David. It's in giving them a chance to rebuild themselves. Just like I'm giving you. The door opened again. Jennifer Thompson walked in. Your new marketing team is ready, she announced. They followed her to the classroom, where 20 women waited, former victims of David's business schemes. Meet your new students, Jennifer said to Sophia. Each one lost something to Sterling Real Estate. Now they're here to learn how to build something new. Olivia faced the women. I'm not who you think I am. We know exactly who you are, one woman interrupted. Hannah told us about your father, about your plan for revenge, about everything. Then why would you want me to teach you? Olivia asked. Because Hannah believed in second chances, Jennifer replied. Even for those who don't deserve them. David watched as Olivia began to cry, real tears this time, not the manipulative ones he had seen so often before. Ashley moved closer to her mother. Dad's teaching here too, she said. Maybe we could all learn something. Jack Carter placed a hand on David's shoulder. Hannah's last letter to me said something important. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about creating a better future. Grace touched Hannah's pearls. Hannah's pearls. The Foundation's 1-year anniversary is next week. Hannah left special instructions for that day, too. What instructions? David asked. You'll see. Grace smiled. She saved her biggest surprise for last. As the class began, David watched Olivia attempt to connect with her students. She was failing, but she was trying just like he had. His phone buzzed. A message from James Bennett's mother. Hannah's final video will play at the anniversary ceremony. Are you ready for her last lesson? David looked around the room at his son, his almost daughter, his former mistress, all the lives he'd broken, and all the people trying to rebuild. No, he typed back. But I don't think I'm supposed to be. The old woman's reply was instant. Hannah said you'd say that. She also said that's how she knew her plan would work. David touched his unopened letter from Hannah. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't in the punishment, it's in the redemption. And Hannah Sterling had planned both. On the morning before the Foundation's anniversary, Grace found David staring at Hannah's pearls in their display case. Do you know the real story behind these pearls? Grace asked. Grace stepped closer to David, her voice calm but firm. Hannah always knew how to make the impossible happen. She knew that in order to rebuild, she had to tear down what you thought you controlled. And now, David, her legacy will continue through all the women you tried to destroy. David's hands trembled slightly as he gazed at the pearls, the symbol of Hannah's final, brilliant move. Grace smiled, a knowing expression on her face. You see, David, the pearls weren't just jewelry. They were insurance. They contained everything you thought you could hide, every lie, every betrayal, all captured and saved for the right moment. David looked at Grace, his face pale. He felt the weight of his past mistakes bearing down on him more than ever before. Later that morning, as the anniversary ceremony approached, the Foundation's auditorium was bustling with activity. The space, once a quiet part of the mansion, was now full of energy and purpose. Women, old and young, gathered for the first time to celebrate their success, their resilience. David was still reeling from the shocking discoveries, but there was no turning back. Hannah's plan had been executed flawlessly, and he was left to watch the fruits of her labor unfold in front of him. He stood by the entrance, feeling both like an outsider and a witness to the monumental change she had set in motion. The room quieted as Grace took the stage. Welcome to the Foundation's 1-year anniversary, she began, her voice steady, powerful. Today, we celebrate not only the success of our graduates, but the incredible impact that Hannah Sterling's vision has had on all of us. David stood at the back, watching, his heart sinking deeper with each passing moment. He had built an empire of lies, and now he was watching the truth be rebuilt by the very women he had sought to dismiss. As Grace continued to speak, the screen behind her flickered to life, and Hannah's face appeared. Hello, my dear students. Hannah's voice resonated through the room, clear and unwavering. If you're watching this, it means we've achieved something incredible together. But there's one more lesson for all of us to learn, and it's a lesson in love, forgiveness, and redemption. David's pulse quickened. This was at the moment he had been dreading. The video shifted to show David and Hannah from the past, their young, hopeful faces full of ambition. Hannah's voice returned, soft but firm. David, if you're watching this, you've probably already learned that everything you thought you built is gone. You see, the real power in this world isn't in what we own, it's in what we give, in how we build, and in the legacy we leave behind. Hannah's smile appeared on screen, a smile that had always known more than David could ever comprehend. And the greatest revenge, David, isn't in destroying someone's life. It's in showing them how it feels to see their dreams fall apart, only to watch others rebuild those dreams from the rubble. From the truth. The video continued, showing clips of the Foundation's success stories: Eleanor, Patricia, Betty, and more, each of them thriving, building their businesses, their futures. David's world was crumbling around him as he watched the people he once dismissed now succeed where he had failed. David, Hannah's voice continued, this isn't just about money, power, or business. This is about healing, forgiveness, and the strength to rebuild what was lost. I have given these women the opportunity to create something beautiful, and in doing so, I've created something beautiful for myself as well. The video paused, and the room was silent for a moment. Then Grace's voice broke the stillness. And now, David, for your final lesson. The screen behind Grace flickered once more, and the image of the pearls appeared. A soft light gleamed from the necklace, almost as if they were glowing with purpose. These pearls, Grace said, her voice steady, are not just a symbol of Hannah's life and legacy. They are the key to unlocking everything David tried to hide. Everything he thought he could control. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Grace held up the necklace. These pearls contain the truth, David. They were never just about a woman's love for a man. They were about accountability, about ensuring that the truth would come out, no matter how much you tried to bury it. David stood frozen, unable to tear his eyes away from the screen. His empire of lies had been laid bare, and now there was no place left to hide. Grace placed the pearls back into the display case and turned to the audience. Hannah's final lesson, everyone, is not about punishment. It's about redemption. It's about turning the ashes of what was once destroyed into something new, something better. She turned to David. And it's about helping those who have been wronged rebuild their lives, just as you've tried to destroy them. David felt the weight of it all. He had underestimated Hannah, underestimated the people he had wronged, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The doors to the foundation opened, and a new chapter began for David Sterling. He stood alone, surrounded by the women who had built their dreams from the ground up, dreams that he had tried to crush, but that Hannah had made sure would rise. And for the first time, David understood. The greatest revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about the strength to forgive, to rebuild, and to finally face the truth. Hannah had won. And in that victory, David finally saw what it meant to truly lose everything. The foundation's first year was a success, but it was just the beginning. David was no longer the man he once was. The legacy he had built from lies and manipulation had crumbled, and now he had a choice: to rebuild from the ruins or to watch as the people he had wronged built something greater, without him. And as he watched the women around him continue to thrive, he realized that Hannah's final lesson was the most important one of all. True wealth is not in what we own, but in what we give away. I gave them to her when we bought our first office, David began, but Grace interrupted him. No, David. That's your story, not hers. Grace unlocked the display case and carefully removed the necklace. Under the pearl clasp, she revealed a tiny USB drive. Hannah never wore these pearls just for show, Grace continued. They were her insurance policy. Every conversation, every deal, every lie, everything was recorded here. David sank into a chair, stunned. All this time, he murmured. But Grace wasn't finished. She pressed the largest pearl, and it clicked open, revealing a microchip. This contains everything about Project Sunrise, Grace said. Your offshore accounts, the real reason James Bennett went to prison. Why show me this now? David asked, his voice trembling. Because Hannah's final video plays tomorrow, Grace replied. You deserve to know what's coming. The door opened, and Jennifer walked in with a stack of old letters. Found these in my attic, Jennifer said. Every promise David made before leaving me for Hannah. She asked me to keep them until today. David took the letters, his hands shaking. I was different then. Were you? Jennifer asked. She placed Hannah's diary on the desk and opened it. Read page 43. David opened the diary, reading the entry aloud. Today David proposed. He doesn't know I heard him promise the same things to Jennifer last month, but I accept it anyway. Someone needs to stop him from hurting more women, even if it takes 40 years. She married me knowing I was lying, Jennifer said. She married you to protect others from you. Jennifer corrected him. Everything, the foundation, the classes, the evidence, she planned it all on our first date. Betty entered carrying a photo album. Mrs. Sterling wanted you to see these today, Betty said. The album contained photos of every person David had wronged: James Bennett, Jennifer, Grace, all the families he'd evicted, all the partners he'd betrayed. Hannah kept track of everyone, Betty explained. She helped them secretly for years, paid for Grace's nursing school, funded Jennifer's teaching degree, supported James Bennett's mother after he went to prison. Jack Carter and Ashley arrived next, carrying boxes of documents. We found these at Mom's place in Miami, Ashley said. Olivia kept records too. Not just of your lies, but of her own. Jack Carter opened a file and found a shocking revelation. Turns out Olivia was working with Hannah for the past year. Every record, every confession, part of the plan. Hannah reached out to me 6 months before she died, Olivia said from the doorway. She showed me proof that you framed my father. She offered me a choice: help expose you, or go down with you. David looked around the room at the faces of those he had wronged. You were all part of this, Grace said. Hannah brought us together. Everyone you hurt, everyone you betrayed, Grace continued. She gave us all a choice: revenge or redemption. Which did you choose? She gestured at the foundation. Look around, David. What do you think? David's phone buzzed. A message from James Bennett's mother, ready for tomorrow's video? Another message arrived from Hannah's old email account, scheduled months ago. The pearls weren't just jewelry, David. They were a key. Tomorrow, they unlock everything. Dorothy entered last, carrying a final letter. Hannah wrote this the day she died, Dorothy said, handing it to David. He opened it with trembling hands. Dear David, the letter began. I could have destroyed you with a single pearl's worth of evidence. Instead, I built something better from your lies. Tomorrow you'll understand why the pearls you gave me, thinking they were a chain, became the key to everyone's freedom, including yours. Love always, Hannah. Grace placed the pearls back in their case. Tomorrow, during Hannah's video, these pearls will tell their final story. What story? David asked. The one about a woman who turned 40 years of lies into a lifetime of truth. Grace smiled. Hannah's last lesson starts in 12 hours. Are you ready to learn? David looked around the room, at the faces of those he had wronged, all transformed by Hannah's plan. Tomorrow, her final video would play, and the pearls would reveal their last secret. Tomorrow, David Sterling would learn Hannah's greatest lesson, and for the first time in 40 years, he was afraid of the truth. The Foundation's auditorium was packed for the 1-year anniversary celebration. 100 successful graduates sat in the front rows. Eleanor's cookies were served at every table, and Patricia's knitted scarves decorated each chair. David sat at the back, watching quietly. Grace approached the podium, wearing Hannah's pearls. Welcome to our first graduation ceremony, Grace began. But before we celebrate our graduates, Hannah left us a final message. The lights dimmed, and Hannah's face appeared on the screen, vibrant and smiling, recorded just days before her death. Hello, my dear students, Hannah's voice echoed. If you're watching this, our foundation has succeeded beyond my hopes. But there's one final lesson to learn about love, about forgiveness, and about the true meaning of legacy. The screen split to show surveillance footage of David bringing Olivia home after the funeral, wearing Hannah's pearls. David, dear, I knew about Olivia long before you thought I did. Just like I knew about every betrayal, every lie, every scheme. The pearls you gave me recorded everything. The audience gasped as Grace removed the necklace, revealing its hidden technology. But here's what you never knew, Hannah continued. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for love. Not just love for you, but for every person you hurt: James Bennett, who loved me first, for Jennifer, who you abandoned, for Grace and Jack Carter, who you denied, and for all the families you displaced. The screen showed images of the Foundation's graduates launching their businesses, supporting their families, rebuilding their lives. This foundation isn't just about teaching business, Hannah's voice continued. It's about turning pain into purpose. Your lies became their lessons. Your betrayals became their beginnings. Hannah's face softened. And now, my final surprise, she said. Grace, would you open the pearl? Grace twisted the center pearl, and inside was a small key. Behind the old wine rack in the mansion's basement, Hannah said, there's a safe. This key opens it. Jack Carter and Ashley rushed to retrieve its contents, returning with a stack of documents. These papers prove James Bennett's innocence, Hannah explained. They also protect everyone in this room from any legal repercussions for their part in my plan. The FBI has copies. Your empire wasn't just transferred, David. It was transformed legally, permanently, completely. The screen split again, showing the Foundation's success stories. Eleanor's cookies were now in stores nationwide. Patricia's designs were featured in fashion magazines. Every woman in the room had built something beautiful from the ashes of David's deceptions. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. But my greatest hope wasn't their success, she said. It was your redemption. David, these past months teaching here, you've changed. You've learned. You've grown. The screen showed clips of David teaching, genuinely helping his students. So here's your graduation present, Hannah's voice continued. Forgiveness. Not just from me, but from everyone you've wronged. They each made that choice themselves, inspired by what we've built here. The audience stood one by one, led by Grace. They turned to face David. We forgive you, they said in unison. Hannah's voice continued. The pearls are yours now, David. Not as a reminder of your lies, but as a symbol of your transformation. Grace will give them to you after this video. They no longer contain evidence, just the power to record new truths. David wiped his eyes as Grace approached with the necklace. And one last thing, Hannah's voice echoed. James Bennett is here today. The back door opened, and James Bennett, older but standing tall, walked in. Hello, David, James said. Hannah asked me to come. Said something about closing circles and opening hearts. Hannah's final words filled the room. Love isn't about possession, David. It's about purpose. I loved you enough to stop you from hurting others. Loved you enough to help you change. And loved you enough to show you that true wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we give away. The screen went dark. In the silence, David stood holding Hannah's pearls. I don't deserve these, he said. No, Grace replied. But you've earned the chance to become someone who does. The graduates applauded as David walked to the podium, pearls in hand. His redemption story was just beginning, and Hannah's legacy would ensure he got it right this time. 1 year after Hannah's final video, the Sterling mansion transformed into something she never could have imagined. The grand entrance hall, once a testament to David's ego, now hosted a bustling community center. Eleanor's cookie company occupied the former ballroom, filling the air with the scent of fresh baked dreams. Patricia's knitting workshop took over the sunroom, where women learned to turn crafts into profits. David lived in the gardener's cottage, teaching daily classes in the same rooms where he once plotted his schemes. His greatest joy came from watching his students succeed, particularly Dorothy Chin, who turned her eviction story into a housing advocacy program that helped hundreds of families. Your 9 o'clock is waiting, Grace announced one morning. David looked up to find James Bennett in his doorway. Thought we should talk, James said. About Hannah. About everything. They walked through the foundation halls, watching women learn, grow, and build their futures. She loved you first, David said. No, James replied. She loved what you could become. Even back then, she saw something in you worth saving. They reached Hannah's garden, now maintained by a graduate who had turned her landscaping hobby into a thriving business. Olivia was doing well, James mentioned. Her marketing classes were the most popular in the program. David nodded. After Hannah's video, Olivia had dedicated herself to the foundation, working to restore her father's name and rebuild her relationship with Ashley. Jack Carter appeared in the garden, wearing his doctor's coat. The medical center he ran with Ashley had become a model of ethical healthcare. "Dad," he called to David, the first time he'd used that word. "We need your help with the new housing project. It's the project you started, affordable homes for seniors who want to start their own businesses. We broke ground last month on land that used to house one of your most notorious development schemes. The first residents move in next week," Jack Carter continued. "Thought you might want to help welcome them." Inside the mansion, activity buzzed. Betty's organizing business had expanded to help other women declutter their lives and start fresh. She'd written a book about it, dedicated to Hannah. Grace still wore the pearls, but they held new meaning now. Each pearl represented a woman who had graduated from the program and started her own business. They'd added 3 strands so far. Special delivery came from Eleanor, bringing in boxes of cookies. Her company now employed 15 other foundation graduates. "These are for the anniversary celebration," she said. The foundation's second anniversary celebration would be different from the first. No more secrets to reveal, no more pain to transform, just success stories to share and new dreams to build. Ashley burst in, excited. Mom's group just landed their first major client. Olivia had started a support group for daughters of difficult fathers, turning her own journey into healing for others. The group now partnered with Jack Carter's medical center, providing counseling and career guidance. "Hannah would have loved this," David said, watching the activity around him. "She does love it," Grace corrected. "Everything here breathes her vision." The mail arrived, including a letter addressed to David, written in Hannah's handwriting, the last one she had arranged to be delivered. "Dear David," it began. "By now you've learned that true wealth isn't in buildings or bank accounts. It's in the lives we touch, and the changes we inspire. You lost an empire of lies but gained a legacy of truth. That's the real American dream, not just success, but significance. Keep teaching. Keep growing. Keep proving that it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. All my love, Hannah." That evening, during the anniversary celebration, David stood at the podium wearing Hannah's pearls. They had transformed from a symbol of his shame into a symbol of his transformation. "1 year ago," he began, "we watched Hannah's final video. We thought it was the end of her story. We were wrong. It was just the beginning." The audience, graduates, students, and family members filled every seat. "Hannah didn't just build a foundation," David continued. "She built a future not just for you, but for me. She taught me that true power isn't in taking, but in giving. Not in destroying dreams, but in helping them grow." James Bennett stood beside him. Their old enmity had transformed into shared purpose. Jack Carter and Ashley sat together, their unlikely sibling bond a testament to Hannah's vision of healing. Olivia watched from the back, her marketing students surrounding her with love she never expected to deserve. "Today we're launching the Hannah Sterling Scholarship," David announced. "Funded by the sale of my remaining properties. Every year, it will help 50 women over 60 start their own businesses." Grace joined him at the podium, her pearls gleaming. "And we're expanding to 5 new locations across the country," David continued. "Hannah's legacy is going national." The celebration continued into the evening. Eleanor's cookies were served on plates painted by another graduate. Patricia's scarves wrapped around shoulders that stood straighter now, prouder. Betty organized the event with her trademark efficiency. Her best-selling book was displayed at every table. In the garden, under the stars, David sat on Hannah's favorite bench. The medical center gleamed in the distance, its ethical practices a stark contrast to his former methods. The new housing project rose beyond it, each home a promise of fresh starts. "You did good, Hannah," David whispered. "You turned a man who destroyed dreams into someone who helps build them." A shooting star streaked across the sky. David touched the pearls around his neck, no longer a chain of evidence, but a rosary of redemption. Inside the mansion, women whose society had overlooked were building empires of their own, not of glass and steel, but of courage and hope. Hannah's garden bloomed with roses she had planted, their fragrance carrying her final lesson on the evening breeze. True love transforms, true power liberates, and true wealth multiplies when shared. The American dream had died with Hannah Sterling. She had reinvented it, one pearl of wisdom at a time. And in the end, that was her greatest revenge of all. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for a fresh start. Drop a comment below sharing what Hannah's legacy means to you. What would you do with a second chance? Remember to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that prove the American dream isn't just about success. It's about significance. And as Hannah Sterling would say, true wealth isn't in what we own, but in the lives we transform along the way.